Okay, so the recording started. We've already gone through the ground rules. Welcome to Make the Cut question and answer webinar, along with Popup Card Studio questions. Tonight is February 4th, 2014. Each week I try to post a thread to give people the opportunity to ask their questions ahead of time. And I did so this week. It was quite late because I was out of town unexpectedly until Monday. So I didn't get it up right away, but that's where we're going to start. There's a few questions in there. Again, feel free to ask questions as we go through. Type in the questions, and if they pertain to the subject that we're handling, then we'll answer them during that time. Otherwise, we'll address them at the end of the webinar as we have time. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the questions. Shows you how disorganized I am. I have neither Popup Card Studio or Make the Cut open. So give me a second here. Sorry. Make the cut. Okay, this will be better. Okay, so I need the questions. So let's start with the questions. Okay, so the first question is from Penny. And over the last couple webinars, I went over my technique of handling a certain situation, but each time I did it, it was off after we had stopped the recording. And it has to do when you have multiple shapes competing for the same area, and you as the person that's designing it has to decide. It's not a matter of one shape just moving one higher in the Z order or not. It's actually where you'll see, because it can be a problem that you come depending on the complexity of your design. Andy did discuss this. If you go back to the first webinar where Popup Card Studio was available, part 2, he sort of talked about it at the beginning of that part 2. That's why we started recording it again. I talked about it a couple times on the webinar. Susan talked about it as well last week's webinar, but we all three have slightly different techniques. So I'm going to go over what my technique was. I have shown this before, but we're doing this so that it's recorded as well so that people can look at it. So the question came up, if you look at the design, and we'll start with this one. If you do let's try a new design. The question came up on this example here, this simple intersecting arches, and I'll show you how to resolve that. And I'm just going to use the standard 1-inch position from the back, and I'll do 1 inch from the bottom as well. So I'm just going to draw something quickly here with the arches just so we get the general design, and then show and explain what the problem is, and then the solution that I use. So right now I'm on the Bezier tool, and I'm going to go to arch steps. I'm going to leave everything as it is right now, and we're just going to create 2 shapes here. So we're going to click here. I actually probably want to move this over a little bit, but doesn't really matter, I guess. And then I'm going to switch planes. So this won't be exactly like you see on the creation, but it's the same general idea. I'm now on the vertical, or the bottom plane, but I want it to be 1 inch from the bottom. I'm going to right-click and drag the mouse so that I can sort of look from the top. And I'm going to draw the same type of arch from over here and have them intersect. And we'll bring it back up. So now you see, let me turn off the plane, and you can see the problem is this doesn't meet nicely in the middle here. And if I go ahead and select this person, he's already at the highest Z order. He's the one the last one I drew, so currently he's the top Z order. This is the bottom one. But even if I change it, this side looks better, but now I have the same problem on this side. There's still this gap here. So no matter what I do with the Z order on this particular set of shapes, there's an issue that has to be resolved by you, the designer. Now what I do, the technique that I use, Andy showed basically drawing a rectangle in here, and that's easy because we have a nice flat edge. Everything's nice and straight. and it's easy to create the rectangle. Same thing, Susan's does the cropping tool, which is a similar idea. Or we could have created the shape itself differently as well, but this is the issue that will pop up when you start doing more complex designs. So what I found to work, not necessarily the easiest way in all circumstances, it'll work whether or not you have a nice rectangle to correct or if it's an odd shape. And the way I do that is we want the piece that is missing the gap. In this case, it's the back, the one that goes up, that's parallel to the back. We want to have that selected. We want to know where the intersection of this, the shape that's intersecting it, where it is, what plane that's on. But we're going to go to the cropping tool. I'm going to do exclusive rectangle. You want to make sure that's clicked. And you also want to make sure that the deleted to clipboard is selected as well. And then you can leave the snapping on. You want to leave the snapping on. It'll make it easier. And relative snapping, it's either or. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to I want to grab the part of this original shape that we're having the problem with by cropping it out, and then you'll see what we'll do with it here. So the only caveat to this is you want to start with the cropping tool, because you really can't move it around. Basically, as you draw it, that's it. So you want to start, I find it easiest to start on this dotted line, which means I'm right on the plane where this intersection, this shape is intersecting it. So I get the red dotted line, and you want to be somewhere outside of the edge. I mean, you could go right on the edge if you wanted, but it really doesn't matter. I always like to be careful and make sure I get too much rather than not enough. And you'll see that it doesn't matter too much with this technique. So I'm going to left click and then drag my cropping tool, and I just want to make sure I get at least to the top of the missing pieces and as far out as I need to make sure that I include any of the shape. Now, as soon as I let go of this, it's going to crop. And since I have exclusive rectangle on, it's going to actually crop out more material. And that's just the side effect, so don't worry about that. So I'm going to let go, and it does the crop. The very first thing I'm going to do is do an undo. And so, in essence, the only reason I did that crop was to get that information in the clipboard. But I don't really want to crop any material out of here. I just want to get what should be here in the clipboard. So that's why I do an undo, to get in essence, undo the cropping. But now in my clipboard, I have that piece that we cropped. So we got to, in order to paste, you've got to be on the selection tool. So you can hit either F1 or click on the arrow here. I'm going to then say Edit, Paste, and that's the piece that I cropped out. In this case, it's a nice square rectangle. It overhangs a little bit, but that's fine. And with that and only that selected, which should be by default when you do the paste, you want to use the flip the selected group of shapes onto the opposite side. So you click on that, and you'll see that it flips it down onto this side and sort of overlaps the intersection shape. And that's exactly what we want. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to select that plane. So you can either switch to the planes, but I find it easier while you're in select mode to hold the D key down, the delta key. D is in dog, D is in delta. And then left click on one of the two shapes. And now I'm on the right plane for that. I'm going to include the intersection shape. So I want to do a shift and click on this, so they're both selected now. And now I'm going to go to the Boolean Join. Again, with Boolean Join, you must have two shapes and only two shapes selected. So we're going to do the Boolean Join, and we're going to select the next, not union, that's similar to a join, similar to a weld. We're going to do the difference. And you'll see that in essence what it does is cut out that corner. So now, and I have to hit apply. So now I have that nice, let me take the plane off here. I have it, intersecting right where I want it to do. And both shapes are complete. Now for a rectangle like this, Andy's way is probably the quickest. Or if it's all in the right, it's in a good snapping zone, you can do the crop. You would actually be cropping the the piece that has too much information, like Susan showed in last week's webinar. Towards the end, I don't remember exactly where. So you could do it either way. Where my way comes in a little bit easier, in my opinion, again, we're all learning this, but it's, I find it that when you have, we're going to do the same thing, but instead of those arch steps, which when they intersected were basically nice rectangular pieces that we just had to manipulate, I'm going to use something that's not quite so rectangular. And this is one of the things that I showed, something, let's just do one of these clouds. Okay, so I'm going to bring this in, and first thing I'm going to do is just do a split. And I don't really need these two pieces here. And I'm going to sort of rotate this. I'm just making a shape right now, no big deal. I'm going to make it bigger, and I need some flat edges. So I'm going to do the cropping tool. This is no different than what Susan has shown on several of her webinars, on her videos, and we've shown in a couple of the webinars. I just need a flat spot where I can anchor it at the top and a flat spot on the bottom. So I'm just making some flat spots here. Not that this is a great design, I'm just showing you the technique. So I have this, I'm going to move it to the bottom so that this flat spot is on the bottom plane. In this case, I'm going to duplicate this so I don't have to, I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to do edit, Control-C, which is the same thing as doing edit copy. And we'll worry about the anchors. By the way, I didn't finish this project. You would draw anchors, back and down for all these steps. That's not the technique we're doing. Anyway, so we have this shape. Actually, let me make it a little bit bigger. Make sure it's down. Okay. And now we're going to switch planes. We're going to go down to 1 inch. So basically the same setup as we were doing before. And I'm going to paste. So I'm going to Control V. And I have this other cloud here. And just to be sort of similar to what we're showing here, I'm going to, oops, I basically wanted to flip it one way. Well, either way, that'll work. Now, let me do it this way. There we go. We want to back end. We want this flat spot to be touching the back here. And there we have it, but you see that now, similar to the arch steps, sorry, I'm trying to get this sort of straight on here. Similar to the arch steps, because this has a higher precedence and where it intersects, there's pieces of this original cloud missing. So how do we, fix that? It's a similar thing that we had to do before, except that as you can see, it's not a nice rectangle. So you can't draw a rectangle to fix this. You could try to draw, estimate where the cloud was and the curves and everything were, but again, that would take more work, and that's why I like my technique. So again, I say it's my technique. It's just, the way I do it when I design stuff. Not that I invented it or anything. So same thing. We're going to select the piece that's missing things that we need to fix, which is this piece in this case. I'm going to go to the cropping tool. I'm going to make sure that exclusive rectangle and deleted to clipboard is done. And again, I'm just going to make sure that I'm starting on the plane, starting on the red dotted line that in essence is the beginning of the intersection from the shape for this plane that's on this plane. And I'm going to start out far enough that I know I'm going to get all the parts. And the cloud sort of comes out this way, if I remember right. So I don't want to stop when I do the cropping right here. That's why I said you always want to extend past. You always want to extend past where you think you need it. So I did that. I don't really want to crop it, so the first thing I'm going to do is Control Z, or you can hit this arrow up here, undo. So we're back to where we were. Go to select mode. Do a Control V or paste. Control V or paste. That's the piece we need, and you can see I have a nice curve here, but I would have had to remember to do this little tick over here. That's selected. I'm going to do the flip. I'm going to now if I move down here, you can see I have the flip. So now I'm going to hold the D key down, select this layer, that shape as well as this shape here. So we have both. We're going to do the Boolean join, and we're going to do the difference. And now you can see, I'm sorry, you always have to hit apply. So now you see that I have a nice, good intersection with that piece. So rather than having to worry about, what did I have to cut out of this piece to not lose anything over here, I just let the basically you crop the piece and flip it, and it's exactly what you need. And you don't have to worry about overlap on either side, because it's only going to do as far as the shape goes anyway. So, because we're doing the Boolean join difference. So, and then of course to finish that up, you would of course do the do your anchors. So in this case, I would use AutoQuad. Get my intersections here, and I should put my snapping up higher, but do the snapping here. Let me just go up higher. Oops. And then you'd have the intersection that you wanted. So any questions on that technique? Again, I've shown it before after we had stopped recording on last week's webinar, as well as I'm pretty sure the previous webinar we talked about it as well.
Penny says, thank you so much, Brian. I see the step I was missing.
Okay.
I have just one thing. Can you go back to the stairs one?
Okay.
This has nothing to do with your thing, but can you just explain the extension part of the steps, so if you're doing that sort of thing, you get an even step at the end, please?
Yes, I will do that. Good point.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So when you do the arch steps, and Susan, I think, explained it in her videos. I think when she does it, Scrappy Doo has a video up just on the arch steps. I would recommend seeing that because it's a short video only on the arch steps. But you can see here that my steps are, I'm just going to say these are about 1/2 inch, okay? But you can see this last one is only about 1/4 inch. So, and the reason it's done that way, so let's go over, let me actually start a new project. The reason it's done that way, and this again is with the Bezier tool, but the arch steps, is because one of the things you can do is using the split mirror, you can create something and have it automatically mirror, and then when you mirror it, and then you would weld those two pieces. But now you can see that because the top step, let me zoom in here, because the top step drawn without this check is really 1/2 of a step, or 1/2 the width of a step. When you mirror it and combine it, the two halves make up a whole. That's fine if you're going to mirror it. What if you don't want to mirror it? There is a way, Control Q, there we go. And by putting on the extension here, it'll make that last step the same width as the other. Oops, sorry. I still have split mirror here. This last step will be the same width as all the other steps. And so the difference is with this checked or selected, your top step here is going to be the same width as the other ones. Without it checked, it would only be 1/2 the distance. So maybe what I'll do is I'll draw another one. Oops. So there's with the extension checked, and I'm going to just do it offset by 1/4 inch here, or 1/8 of an inch, whatever I have it at. And then I'll move it so we can see it. I probably should have just moved it in the first place. But you can see that last, oops, turn that off so I can zoom in here. You can see without the extension selected, with this not selected, I get sort of 1/2 of a width there. And again, that's so that if you mirror it, you have the right size. And so if you're not mirroring it, so in this design, I should have put the extension on, so this step would have been the same as the others. But basically, if you have that checked, then you get the full width here. Okay? Other questions? No questions?
Not right now.
Okay. Okie doke. So the next, let me go back to the questions here. Okay, so that was Penny's question. Penny, you said I did answer your question, so that's good. So the next question is from Ruby, and she wanted, well, okay, let me address this first. The 180-degree card is, there's still work that needs to be done on that, and when it's ready, you know, Susan will do a demo or whatever. It's workable, but right now it's just going to confuse people because there's things that aren't working exactly right, and Andy wants to do some more changes to that. So we probably won't do any demonstrations of this until that part's ready. People have used it and been successful, but I don't, you know, it just is, we're not going to do it now. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. So Susan's not working on it now, but when it's fixed, she will be doing one. So we have to be patient there. The second question that Ruby had was how to go about making a pop-up chair or bench when the seat is inward fold and the arms are outward fold. And she originally added a picture to something that was somebody that on their blog had used one of those pop-it-ups from somebody. I'm drawing a blank now. Basically a die that you would use and cut it, and it would add the cuts. But in essence, what it is, this was a design, and Andy can interrupt me here. It's the person that basically sort of is credited with inventing the origamic architecture, and this is something out of one of his books from 1985. So this idea of this type of you know, fold out bench type of thing has been around for, you know, almost 20 years now, or 25 years almost. So it's not, you know, new to anybody else, but it is kind of an interesting, you know, nice kind of design. I'm going to just show quickly sort of this design here that he did, only I'm going to make it a little bit wider, you know, just to be a little bit different, but same idea. This is one I showed just to get another picture in there, but we're just going to do the basic one, you know, solid seats. And homework will be, if you want to do this and make a design other than, you know, flat, you know, solid shapes, you can do it. You can change the design of the legs, arms, back, seat, and if you want a good example, Susan Blue Robot has on her blog one, and Susan, you might want to type in what which entry that is. It's back from several weeks ago, I think. So let me go ahead and start with this one, and then Ruby, if you're on, if this doesn't answer your question, you just type in saying, no, I wanted something else, but I'm pretty sure this is what you want. So I want to go a new create, and so the basic idea here is pretty straightforward. You have two legs, you have a back of the seat. Let me actually show this one. You have two legs, two arms, the back of the seat, and the seat, you know, the sitting portion. And you know, this can be a certain, I'm not necessarily the sizes I choose may not be, you know, great for what you're designing, but I'm basically going to do an inch out, inch and a half high as far as the legs, and then probably about an inch up the seat, and about a 1/4 inch or so back. The back will stick, you know, be away from the back about a 1/4 inch. So those are sort of just the rough dimensions I'm going to use. So I'm going to let me start out. So I'm going to just start with the legs first, and I'm just going to, you know, make it similar to what he did, just to show that it can be done. I'm going to use draw normally, but I'm going to do split mirror. I'm going to start in the middle here just to create the first leg, and then we'll copy it. 1/8 of an inch is good. So I'm going to just create this, and I'll explain what I'm doing. But there's other videos on how to use the Bezier tool, and so that's not the purpose of this particular demonstration. But actually, I already want to start back. So let me back up. Okay. And my legs are going to be a little bit wide, and so I'm clicking at 1/8 inch intervals. And I'm going to left click and drag so I get that curve. And I got to back up because I want this to be straight now. I'm going to go up. There's an inch. There's an 1.5 inches. So I want to come down, click, angle it up, click, and drag to get that curve. Go back and make this straight, and then click here. I think this might be a little bit too wide, actually. Yeah, it's too wide. So let me start over again. I probably had it right the first time. Oops. If you ever mess up with the Bezier tool, you can just do a backspace, like I'm doing here. Sorry. Click, click, drag, back up, click, 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 drag, oops, drag, back up, click, click. So since I have mirror on, I get that. That's still pretty thick, but we'll live with it. No, I don't like that either. I keep on forgetting that I'm doubling the width of this, and that's why I'm messing up here. Sorry.
Would the rounded rectangle work better? Leslie wants to know.
You could use that. I like doing it this way because I get a very specific corner radius. While I could bring a rectangle in, if I smushed it to get it to the size that I wanted, my rounded corners would probably be different. But yeah, you can use any shape. You don't have to have rectangles. You can do spindle legs or whatever. I'm trying to follow more of sort of how they had it. Sort of nice corner rounds, both on the feet and on the arms. Anyway, so this is what I'm going to use for the. I got a weld. And I want 2 of those, so I'm going to do a Control-C while it's marked, Control-V, and now I have 2 of them. So I'm going to put them some distance apart, so 3, 1.5 inches. That's pretty far apart, isn't it? Let's bring it in. There. You get the idea. Maybe half. Yeah, we'll leave it there. If you want a really long bench, I'll go with a really long bench. And I'm going to do this now, but I'm just going to join them together so they're considered one shape, and you'll see why in the future. So I'm going to join them just so now if I select it, they're all selected. I can do right away. So there's a couple things I could have done. I could have continued to draw up and then another inch and then folded it over, or I can just flip planes and then just redraw one of them here. So, and actually I should have left this over in the middle here. So I'm going to draw this by hand without mirror. So I'll try not to talk too much in here because I'm going to mess up if I'm talking and trying to explain it here. So basically I want the same type of thing here. So I'm going to left click, try this again. Left click, left click, left click, drag. Go back because I want a straight line. And I'm going to go all the way to the back, but I want a curve again at the back. So I'm going to click, click, drag, back up. And then since I don't have the mirror, I've got to do the other side too. So I'm going to click, click, drag, click, click, drag, click, click. Oh, it did still mirror, so that's good. It just did a mirror a different way because I wanted it there, so that's good. And I'm going to join those too. So now I have the 2 legs and the 2 arms. So now we want to do a back and a seat. So it doesn't really matter which one you do first. So since we're on this plane, let's go ahead and do a seat for it first. So I'm going to do one. And again, the seat is basically going to come out I'm going to draw it all the way to the back because when I do the intersection, it'll I can fix it later. But I'll stop it out at half an inch or a quarter of an inch away. But it extends out again. I'm going to say that this is a quarter of an inch past the legs, and that this corner is a quarter inch round, not an eighth inch round. If that makes sense. So I want to come in, since I want to come in a quarter of an inch, quarter of an inch. So I'm going to start back here. I'm going to be on the Bezier. We're going to draw normally, but I'm not going to do the split mirror here. So I want to start in the back, come out. We're going to be sticking out a quarter inch, but we're going to do a quarter inch round. So I'm going to basically do that same technique, but just do it here. So I'm going to make sure I'm in the right quarter of an inch here. Drag. And I should have not gone to the back, but since I did the first one, that's what I'll end up. Okay, so there's my seat. And you can already see that we have problems because my seat now is removing some of the legs and the arms. If I change the aspect ratio of that to being the lowest, then it doesn't stick out the way, it doesn't have that stick out here. So we'll work on that after we get the back part. So now the last piece we need is the backing, and I said that was going to be on the back plane, and it's going to be a quarter inch from the back. So I could type in 0.25 inch, or I can do 1/4, and it puts me back to a quarter of an inch. And same thing here. It's just going to it's going to basically be the same width as the seat, and it's going to have some sort of arch to it. Since this is a bench and not a seat, it's going to be more of a long, oval. It's not going to be a nice half round. That makes sense. Again, I want to make sure that I intersect with this plane, the seat basically. So let me go back to center here. And we're going to come in a half an inch, and it would help if I was on Bezier. Draw normally, not split. Okay. So I want to come in a quarter of an inch, sorry, not half an inch. Bring it up. I'm going to come up about a quarter of an inch above it, and then do my dragging. And I'm just going to drag it till I get the curve that I want. Same thing here. I got there. Straight here and here. And there's our seat. So basically, again, if I select this and move it down, we have our seats. Actually, let me move it up one so it's above the seat. So I got the seat, but it's not attached here, or the backing, it's not attached here, and my seat doesn't have the curve. So we're going to use that same technique I showed earlier and fix it. So the way I'm going to do that is, again, I'm going to go on cropping. Actually, I got to select it. So I'm going to do the back first. I'm going to select the back, make sure I'm on that plane. Then I'm going to go to cropping, make sure I'm exclusive, and delete it to the clipboard. And I want to make sure I'm starting on the plane, in this case where the arms are. And I'm going to drag it. Undo, Control Z. Go to Selection, Control V. Flip. Select that. And this piece. Now the reason I had joined these before is because, remember I said Bezier, Boolean Join had to have two pieces and only two pieces. If I left these as separate, I'd have three pieces selected right now, and I wouldn't be able to do the Boolean Join. So that's why I did that. And we're going to do the difference and apply. So right now I got that piece sort of working, right? I got a nice fold here connected there. So now I've got to do, in essence, do the same thing for the seat. So I'm going to select the seat plane, and what I'm missing here is in the front here. So again, I'm going to now switch over to the crop tool. This is still set the right way. I want to make sure that I'm on the plane, in this case, where the legs are. So I go make sure I get the red dotted line, and I'm over at least a quarter of an inch, because that's how far we stick in here, or stick out, whatever. Same thing. Select Control Z, which is undo that. Go to Selection, or F1, Control V for pasting, flip, and we're going to now select that. So called D down, the letter D down, select that, and select. Now these somehow got, they're not joined. See how I have just two things joined? So even though this looks like I had it back here, they're now three shapes, and I can't do the Boolean join. See how that's grayed out? So the first thing I have to do is select these two and do a join or weld. It doesn't matter because they're not touching, so it accomplishes the same thing. And so that's one shape that's selected now. I'm going to shift key down, select that piece, do the Boolean join, difference, and apply. And now you can see that I have that piece sticking out. I have a nice folds line there, and we'll check it. But this is why, now in this case, we could have done it by drawing our own rectangle, our own shape, because we knew this was a quarter round here, and we knew this was, a certain, this might have been a little bit harder, but you could do it. It was a simple curve, but I just like that crop to get it into the clipboard, on Control Z to undo the crop, paste the piece that we wanted, and flip it. I just find that a little bit easier. Even though it's a longer step, it might take a few more steps in simple cases, it works it makes some of these other cases pretty simple, or you do it the same way. So we do a print preview just to make sure we have it. We have folds. That's the back, where the back folds out from the seat. So those are valley folds. The arms where meet the legs are mountain folds, and then you have the fold for the card. This is still cut, obviously, because we don't want to have a curved surface to fold, but remember that sticks out from the, turn off the plane here. It sticks out a quarter of an inch, so that is supposed to be a cut. So really the anchors here are accomplished by the legs and the arms. And then for the seat, going into the backing, we don't have to have anchors to either the bottom or top because they're anchored to the arms and legs. And then so you can look at that any way you want, and do your little virtual snapshot. So let me just get a drink here. Hang on. Any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. Now the homework assignment you have is I want you to create something like this. You'll be able to see the pictures here. This was just a this is just a preview picture of this. Again, the proportions aren't necessarily correct, so make it something that's pleasing for you. You don't have to have fat legs with rounded, tips here. I was just doing that to follow more of his style. You don't have to have, you might not like where the cutouts overhang here. That's basically where these two meet is what gets cut out. So you could, make that flat, whatever you want, change the proportions, make it a bench, make it a love seat, make it a seat, single seat or chair, put whatever design you want on there. And Susan, did you ever post the link to your blog? If you do there, if you want to do that, if you don't want to do it, that's fine. But you had that example where you got really fancy on the legs were made up of hearts and letters, I think. Can I show that?
Yes, of course, yes.
Okay.
You sure can.
Oops.
I posted the link.
Yep, got it. Let's see how. Yeah, I'm going to just do it this way. She pasted it for you, but I guess it's. Oh, what? I did have it. Okay. So you can see her. Obviously it's the same pictures I had there, but this is her design here. So her legs are made out of hearts and arms are made out of hearts. The bench part of it has hearts out of it, and the backing has two hearts with the word love in there. for a Valentine's Day type of love seat. Actually, it doesn't have to be Valentine's. There's another version of it at a different angle. And this was actually cut. Mine obviously is not cut. I'm just demonstrating it here.
And it was the actual pop-up part was cut in white, and I did the background
in the sky here. Okay.
Yeah, as a separate, and then laid it over.
Yeah. So there's the bench. You know, again, it's sort of the basic design was from the same guy that did a lot of the organic architecture, or is credited with sort of being the father of that. And this was done at least as early as 1985, because that was in the 1985 book. But you can just see all the different possibilities you have with this. You know, park benches, you know, sofas in a house, you know, if you're doing a house scene, chairs, love chairs, whatever. So.
Brian, Leslie wants to know, when you did the pen and were drawing the curve, then you got to the straight part, you moved it back.
Yeah, I do that out of habit.
Did you click to release?
Yeah, so let me just go over that real quick. So when you're on the pen and you're doing the draw normally, so when I was doing the flat, you know, the straight parts, or the first part of the curved part, so I did a click and release, drag here, because that's where my next point I wanted to be, click and release, drag it up here to where I want the end point to be, but now I'm going to click and drag so that it pulls the handles, and then I just let go. But now this still is a curve, so if I moved it anywhere but straight up, it'd be a curve, and I may not want that. So if I go back to this endpoint and click on this, it basically gives me, and I just clicked it and released it. So now I have straight lines, and I can do whatever I want, and that's what I did. I continued up, you know, click, drag, released, went back, click, released, and I have a straight line. Now, if you're gonna continue and do some curving, then you wouldn't have to go back. I mean, if you wanted to, you know, do something else, you know, you wouldn't have to go back to that endpoint to get it to go from a curved a custom node to or you could make it a custom node, I guess is the proper way to say it. Andy can correct me. But anyway, so yes, I basically went back, clicked on it so that I could then do, in my case, a straight line without any curves until I wanted it. But there's, again, there's a lot of, I shouldn't say there's a lot of, there's been some webinar video. Susan, I can't remember if I'm sure you have it in some of your videos as well. Andy has shown it, you know, where you can, the Bezier tool. I think I showed it in one of the, not the very first webinar, but the second webinar too. So, and I'm not sure if if Rob from Scrappy-Doo has done that video yet. I'm drawing a blank. So, okay. So Ruby, that did that answer your question? Was that sort of what the idea you wanted?
She said she can see where she needs lots of practice for this.
But go ahead, I'm sorry. So it's...
Nope, she just said thank you.
Okay, good. So it can be practiced, but the idea, and again, if we look at it in the print preview, it's not the basics of it. Like if you had to look at Susan's card and try to say, how did she do that? It might be a little bit more intimidating because it's you know, how did you do it? And I did it this way, because that's how he had it, but it also shows the shapes and the little curves sort of, you know, delineate, you know, between the different shapes. But it's really not that, you know, once you do it and you do it a couple times, I think you'll get it, and then you can make all kinds of designs sort of based on this type of principle. You know, it's not always, I guess part of what the reason we wanted to show this in addition to Ruby asking it was it shows, you know, not all anchors are anchored to the bottom plane and the back plane. That sometimes you have intermediate anchors, in a sense, and things can be free-flowing. Like this whole back, there's no anchor for this back other than here on the arms and the bench seat itself. But there's nothing holding the bench there except for the backing and the little bit of here at the arms. So it should just, not that you may see anything right now, but as you start learning to say, hey, would this make a good pop-up card or not, don't always think in terms of I've got to have, from the bottom design to the back anchor, or vice versa, or even if you have in a portrait, side to side, it can be more than that. It can be more levels than that. So it's just a technique that sort of shows that with, I don't want to say a simple shape, but a simple idea. But once you get the idea, you'll be putting this together, pretty good. And when I did this picture here, I basically what I did was, I did a shadow to out, fill out the back, and then I took a bar and I rotated it and welded it back, and same thing with the bench seat here. But you could put things down the middle. If you looked at Susan's, she had sort of a solid seat with just the front design in, but the back is completely wide open with the the design that's there. So you can make a wrought, like a wrought iron type of bench. The possibilities are endless. So I would like to informally say that this is a homework assignment. Do something like this bench, excuse me, and make it your own design. Make it low, make it high. Design on the back, design on the seat, whatever. So,
and Brian?
Yes.
And if they're if they're not so sure of using the Bezier tool, use basic shapes. It's a lot easier.
Yes, I agree. And what I'm saying, so let me just do real quick with we'll do the auto quad, so we're going to do rectangles. Same idea. What were these were a half an inch wide, basically. And remember, this is what I was saying too. So this 1.5 inches high is the leg, and another inch is the arm. Well, magically, the reason that's 1 inch long arm is because that's how far away the legs are. So I could draw 2 rectangles, starting here. So going up, there's in essence the leg, and another inch for the arm. Click that, and what's that, over 2, 1, 2. So same thing here, right? And then with them selected, do the fold over, and sorry, that's this one. Select the back layer, and you can see there I have the arms and the legs already, and they're just basic shapes, And again, I could do the rectangle for the seat. You don't have to have it overhang like this as much as we do here, but you do want some sort of anchor here. That's part of what makes it work. You don't have to have it cut out. You could just have a skinnier leg down here and a wider leg up here. It really doesn't matter, but maybe start out with the basic shapes, just using rectangles. Rectangle for the seat, rectangle for the back. Let's do that real quick. So any other questions while I'm doing this real quick?
Not yet.
Okay. And even with the backing, even the backing, we could have done the backing in the seat. We probably could have done as one shape and had it, oops. I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right. So same type of thing. Let's move that to the bottom, then up one. Let's to the bottom. And then really the only thing we have to do is here, and we don't have to use my technique. We use Andy's technique, which is the solid rectangle. So I got a slip here. So we're going to do the rectangle here,
I don't even use that technique anymore. I just use the other one.
Okay.
Do the contents, just because you can use that one in all situations, not just certain situations.
Yeah. So you can see here my design is a little bit weird because I went too far. But okay, so let's do that. I'll do that. Oops. See. Anyway, start with the basic shapes and try not to mess up like I did here. So let me just actually see. I'm going to cheat here and just do it this way. There we go. Anyway, any other questions?
Is there any way to have the handles pass the legs?
The
arms?
The arms past the legs, like
Yeah,
further out to the left.
Over to the back, can you have them hanging over?
Hanging, well, so it's important, the reason this works is so that I can have, in essence, a floating back and bench. The reason this works in this configuration is because I'm tied into the arm, which then is tied to the back of the card, and tied into the legs, which is tied into the bottom of the cards. Does the arm have to be the same width as the leg? It does not. It can be a different shape, and you can actually see that with Susan's, right? It's actually.
I think what she's asking is that can the arms on the top extend out?
Over the legs.
You could, as long as you leave a hinge. You know, there's some hinging area. I mean, you could have something pop out a little more.
And the problem would be is if it hung, so let's go back here. Let's go to,
I mean, if you want to stick something out like an extra 1/4 inch, there's enough room.
Yeah, but the problem is if you extend the arm out 1/4 inch, you're digging into the leg. So if it's...
No, I'm not talking about the whole arm. I'm just talking about the middle of the arm, like just a little bit of the hinge.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that way you still have it hinging there, except it's just it gives the illusion of it extending out.
Right. So we could do...
You probably wouldn't want to have the curved, parts.
Yeah. Let's do it this way.
Yeah, with that one. I think that's what she's asking. I don't know.
So I could do... so I'd have to have some hinge
on that plane.
Yeah. Thank you. So sorry. That would work. Let me go down to 16th. So as long as something like that, and weld, and then this would work. But so the overhang would be there. Let me take this off. The overhang would be there, but see how it does cut out of your leg area because they're all part of the same piece of paper. But you could do that, or as long as you had a hinge area, maybe it overhang. Have, as long as there's something that connects the arm with the leg in this case, that you had hinge because that's part of your structure, and you don't want it too thin because that's really in essence holding up everything else. I didn't finish this, did I? Flip. I got to join these two first. Anyway, I won't finish this one, but just to show you. Oops. Always forget to hit that apply. So that gives you a little bit. Now this still isn't fixed, so it's going to fall apart, but at least you get that illusion of overhang. Well, you get the overhang. Let me zoom in here so we can get a better preview of it. It's hard to see the back, but you get that overhang here. So I probably wouldn't do a rectangle. You'd probably maybe do a little bit of a curve or something. But again, you need the hinge, and whatever you overhang here directly over a leg, you're going to miss from the leg, right? So if we did the print preview of this, it's got to come out of somewhere. Now you could do it sort of opposite. You could make the leg skinnier and then have the arm overhang on the two outsides, but then you have a hole in the middle. But anyway, so this one works except for there's nothing holding the seat together, and you would do that last piece.
Can you show us that last piece again on this?
Yeah. So this is the case. I want to go. This is what's missing because it's being overshadowed by this. So on that plane, I'm going to go to cropping, again, exclusive with delete the keyboard. I'm sorry, clipboard. I want to make sure I'm on the plane of the intersection, which in this case is the legs here by the dashed red line, and I'm going to crop and make sure I carry everything. Control Z, F1 to get me to selection, Control V, flip, and then select that piece. And again, these pieces I have to join first. So I'll do a join on this one instead of well. Now select this. Do the Boolean Join, difference, apply. And there we have it. So this is more like a, well, except for this weird overhang that we were doing to demonstrate, this is more like a, a straight, hard wooden pew or bench you might have out in the foyer, for taking boots off and that kind of stuff. Okay? So that gives you sort of the general techniques. Again, the importance there is the structure that we have. The reason it works with the seat and the bench part, the seat of the bench sort of floating as it is because they're attached to something that is attached to the back and the bottom. That's what makes this design work. And again, it doesn't have to be a two-legged bench seat. It could be, whatever you want it to be. Okay. I don't see any. Was there any other questions there that we missed during that whole rambling that I did?
No.
Okay. So let me go, just because I have to do the preview there. I think that's it from the questions I'm going to handle. So let's make sure. So Ruby, that was for you. Yes. So the next one is. Oh, and by the way, back to Penny's question, which is sort of my I shouldn't call it my technique, but how to get the two intersection to work is it looks like this person did a flash for you. There's no audio with that, but that goes through a similar process as we did. I think she used, I think it's a she, and I apologize if it's a he, but I'm pretty sure it's a she. I think she used the technique that Andy used in the first webinar, part 2. Anyway, so the next question is, this person wanted to see so Andy did a post called 3 More Basic Designs. There was 3 designs on it. That's 3. And 2 webinars ago, he showed one, how he made one. And now he's going to show you how he's doing another one. So Andy, let me know when you are ready to be given a screen.
Okay. Yeah, you can do it now.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yeah, it should be okay.
Okay. And I will let you know when I see your screen. Okay, we see your screen, so I'm going to go unmute.
Okay, well, just let me know if it gets bogged down because I'm running in Windows, so I'm sure it's going to get bogged down. Okay. I think I'm getting sick. All my kids are sick, so I think I'm getting sick. Hang on 1 second. I got a text message, so I have to read it real quick. Oh, sorry. Okay. I gotta just remember what I'm doing here. Okay, I'll show you what I'm making here. My mind is kind of all over the place here. I don't remember what I named this. Okay, so this is the card I'm going to show. It's kind of, it looks kind of simple, but there's a lot of technique that goes on here. And I've seen other people. Somebody needs a mic on.
Can you maximize your screen, please?
Yeah. I've seen people try to make this card after I made it, and they get close, but they miss some things, and you end up with you know, certain things overlapping that shouldn't be overlapping, and it doesn't look right. So I'll show you the tricks to making this card. This was, I don't remember the name of the guy. I think this is the guy's name who made it, Fossil Schiff or something like that, or that's the name of the card, I don't know. But I found it in an old book, and I wanted to make it. So it's really simple, it's just tedious. As with any type of work, this kind of work, there's always going to be tedious things you have to do. But if you keep on it, it ends up looking really nice. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create this kind of this triangle going down and then add this stuff last. Doing this obviously is pretty simple. This part where you have a big square and it gets smaller and smaller through another square. So let's do that first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start and keep everything at an 1/8 inch. It's good to pick something like an 1/8 inch or a 1/4 inch or something that is always going to be the same throughout the entire project. So I'm going to stick with 1/8 inch. And so my snapping is at an 1/8 inch. My position is out an 1/8 inch. And because when you look here, it's out an 1/8 inch. And the top is out an 1/8 inch. Everything is an 1/8 inch. Every measurement you see here, the distance from here to here, here to here, everything is an 1/8 inch. Keeps it nice and uniform, and it ends up making it look really nice. So keep it all the same. And this, you know, this is a design element you can incorporate into your cards. This is just a card that, you know, does something pretty basic and simple, but you can incorporate this kind of design into your cards somewhere, doing something. But I'm sure we'll see some cool things down the road. So, okay, now what I'm going to do now is just, I'm not going to be exact, I'm not going to pick a measurement, I'm just going to say, okay, I'm going to make this card, I'm going to start here and draw my first square. There's no magic here. You don't have to be like, oh, it has to be 3 inches and it has to be 4 inches or any of that. I'm just going to make sure that the distance from here to here is the same as the distance from here to here, so it's centered. So I have 2 inches on this side and 2 inches here, and I'm just going to go up wherever. I'm just going to pick the red line for now, just because it's not important. So now that we have that drawn, I'm not going to move the plane or anything. I'm just going to draw another one, an 1/8 inch in. Okay, so now we have an 1/8 inch. Now, how did I know it was an 1/8 inch? Because we have snapping set at an 1/8 inch. I'm going to make the bottom touch, but there's going to be an 1/8 inch on each side. I'm going to do it again, here and again. Now I'm going to keep doing this until I can't do it any longer. Just like this. And you just keep doing this and doing. And again, like I said, it's a repetitious card. If you look at it, any card that's very architectural, well, there'll be some repetitious elements in it. But it gives a nice flow. When we get to the end, we're going to notice that unless you're perfect, this last square you draw is going to be really oblong, and I don't want it oblong. I want this last one, this last element here to be a perfect square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my crop tool. Now that we have all of this drawn on one plane, you see how that's drawn here. Oh, wait. Oh, hang on, I goofed up. Sorry. I need an 1/8 inch on every end. This was a 1/4 inch, so I need an 1/8 inch. So now it's really oblong. So I want this to be a perfect square. So I'm going to take my crop tool. I'm going to have inclusive, and I'm going to have snapping on. So inclusive and snapping, and I'm going to draw until we get just the top of this, so it's a perfect square. So now we have everything cut. So everything is exactly the same on the bottom, and we have this a perfect square. Now I'm going to select all of this stuff and align to the bottom plane. So now everything is just sitting at the bottom plane. Everything is a perfect square, so on and so forth. So now what I want to do is I want to space all of these out 1/8 of an inch apart. Right now they're on top of one another, and we need to space them apart an 1/8 of an inch so they actually come out of the card. So I'm sure you figured out how that's going to work, but I'll show you. I'm going to hold my Shift key and click this back one so it's deselected and cut everything else to the clipboard. And then move up, and you want to make sure I'm an 1/8 inch because it's very important. So I'm holding my Shift key and I hit my up arrow and it pushes me out. Now we're a 1/4 inch because an 1/8 inch times 2 is a 1/4. So now we're at a 1/4. I'm going to paste what's on the clipboard. And this is where it gets repetitive. Do the same thing. Hit Shift, click on that so it's deselected, cut. It's not Shift. So it's just Shift, not Shift Control, and then paste. Hold Shift, cut, paste, Shift, cut. I'm going very fast here, but don't worry, we're recording. Cut, paste. And if you see what's happening here, you'll see exactly what's going on. The reason I can do this really fast is because I've made this card a couple times before. So I've done this many, many, many times. I'm sure there's people who are quicker than I am at this. Cut. Paste. Oops, forgot the paste part. Cut. Paste. See, sometimes I get ahead of myself here. Alright, I'm still going well. Cut. Paste. Shift. Cut. Now you think this is tedious, wait till you see the next part. Paste. And again, with everything in life, there's multiple ways to do it. So I'm sure somebody's looking at me doing this going, what are you doing? That's taking much longer than it should. You could do it this way, but that's the way I know right now. So now everything is split 1/8 of an inch apart. Now we're just simply going to draw with our autoquad with 2-point rectangle. We're just going to connect all of these back, just like so. We move this up, 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 and we're just connecting the bottom yellow lines back until we get to dashed lines. So I align to this. Let me turn it so you can kind of see what we're doing here. Now I over this corner. Sorry, phone call. Spam. I get calls from Maryland. Anytime I get a Maryland phone call, it's somebody trying to sell me health insurance. So to get this quarter, I'm going to pull back to this quarter so we get that solid block. And we're just going to do that all the way to the top here. Make it centered so you can see better. Move up. Draw a rectangle. Move up. Draw a rectangle. And so on. This wasn't the tedious part I was talking about. It's the part after this that's tedious. It's all pretty tedious. I don't know what I'm talking about. But it's simple. It's not that complicated. And by the way, I saw that, I don't know if you guys seen on the forum, did you see who made that card? The Japanese house. Very impressive.
Yeah,
all the cards I've seen so far is impressive.
Yeah, Leslie 61111. 6111.
Who did that?
Leslie
Yeah,
6111.
Yeah, now what we need to do is get this top triangle to go across and stack. And this is the part people have had problems with. So mainly is how do you know how to make the triangle so that this distance here is the same as the distance down here, and this distance here is the same as this distance down here. And this distance, from this point down is the same. So you want to get basically this general shape just shrunken down a bit. And the way you can do that is by going to the bottom plane here. See how I have the bottom plane selected? I'm going to have my Bezier tool drawing normally. And I'm just going to move to the outside and draw this triangle around the outside. So you can see we end up with just a triangle on the bottom. And now this triangle is exactly the shape of this whole design. And then I'm just going to cut it to the clipboard. So I'm going to show you again how I did that. So we can see that when we're on the 0 position of the bottom plane, that it makes a triangle. So we're just going to outline the triangle. We're going to go to the out of here, outside of this. Again, we're using 1/8 inch snapping because it'll work out perfect because everything is done in 1/8 inch. Again, don't change your snapping. And push it out to the outside 3 points. Okay, and then cut it to your clipboard. So now we got to pick, okay, well, where should we start this? I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Doesn't matter where you start. Just go up 3, 4, 5, or 6, or 7, or 8, or 9, or 10. Doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go up 6. And then paste that clipboard. Or paste that shape that's on your clipboard. And now we've got to shrink it down. So since I moved up 6, I'm going to shrink it 6. So I'm going to go in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? And now it's still aligned on the bottom plate. I'm going to center it. So I'm going to invert center by clicking this button. And now we're totally centered. It doesn't look good. It's not pretty by any means. But we'll work that out. Now what we need to do is make this triangle have a hole in it. And the advanced people are going, why are you doing it now? Why wouldn't you just leave it and then stack on top? Because it would automatically. Trust me on this. I've done this card a couple times. You need to have this out now. So to do that, I'm going to just take this triangle, copy and paste it on top of one another, and then shrink it down. I want to go 1/8 and then another 1/8, and then center it. Okay, and then I'll show you that again. So it's on. So I have the triangle. I copy it, I paste it, and then I'm going to shrink it down once to make this gap, and again to make the other side after we center it. So now we have an 1/8 inch gap on each side, and they're both aligned to the back plane. Another way to do it, instead of shrinking it, and this might probably be the better way, is to just move it up. You can see I took my arrow key, it's selected, and I took my arrow key and just tapped it up. So it moves the triangle out. You can see we are uneven down there, but that's okay. But you can see that the reason we would probably want to do it that way instead of shrinking it down, now that I think about it, because we're going to Boolean join these two to cut this out of this, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to select these and then do a difference, and now what we end up with is just this angle and nothing hanging off the back. And hit apply. Okay, so that's now that we have this triangle, we're going to copy it to the clipboard and leave it there, because we're going to be pasting this many times, probably 30 times now. So now that this triangle is a very important piece, we're just going to copy it and leave it on the clipboard. Don't use your clipboard anymore. You won't need to anyway. So now this is what I was talking about, was the tedious part. I'm going to select this triangle and this piece that we're sitting on, and I'm going to do another Boolean join difference. So we remove the piece and we split this piece into 3 pieces. Okay? And then I'm going to split it apart. Now these 3 pieces are separated. And basically what I want to do now is remove the center piece by selecting it underneath. You see how I got that? Now we ended up with removing that piece. Now I'm going to paste what's on the clipboard. Remember, we copied that there, and select the other 2 pieces and weld them together. I know this is confusing. You're looking and going, oh my gosh, this is a lot of steps. But you're going to do it about 40 times, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that took a long time. But you'll be able to do it in your sleep by the time you finish this card. I promise you that. So anyway, now that we have that, we need to crop off the remainder off the back. And if you take your crop tool and make sure you have inclusive selected, we're going to start way out here and just go up to here. You can see it knocked off the back. It's pretty cool, right? Now you can see exactly how I got this to work. And you can see how we got that little bend pop up. So how this piece starts here and then pops up, we just did that. Start here, pops up, and goes back and around. So now that's it. There's one more step, but I'll show you the next after this next part. Now I'm going to move up to the next one, and we're going to paste the data again here and repeat. Rinse, rinse, wash, wash, rinse, repeat. That's what we're doing here. So select these two pieces. Boolean join, difference, split, remove the middle piece, paste, weld, and crop. So that's it. And then we go up. I'm going to show you one more time, then I got to go back and do some cleanup. So I'm going to go to paste, select the two pieces, Boolean join, difference, split, remove the middle piece, paste, weld, crop. And you have to do this every step all the way up, up, up to the top. That's why I'm so good at it now. And now what you want to do is you can see these these floating triangles in here. You want to get rid of those just to make it look neat. So you end up with just one triangle hanging down the back. If you were to keep doing this all the way to the top, these triangles would be floating. Still cut out okay, but when you would do your crop, you'd end up with these solid black lines in here. And it just doesn't look good. I need it to be perfect because I'm I'm a perfectionist with this stuff. So we're going to go to this piece and see this triangle hanging down. We're just going to erase it. I'm going to use my eraser. Oops, I didn't select it. I'm going to use my eraser. Oops, I don't have, don't want straight line. I just want to use a normal eraser. I'm going to use 2 millimeters. I'm going to erase this out. Plus I like erasing. It's fun to me. I'm going to go to this triangle and do the same thing. Erase this out. Make sure you don't hit anything else, just the triangle in the middle. You can see we're kind of dropping that out. So there, now we can move to our next piece. All right, so what I'm going to do is, I got to reboot. I'm going to do difference, split, delete, paste, weld, crop. Now you see we got another floating triangle. And you can wait till the end. But some of you
Andy, we're losing your audio. I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
There we go. That sounds better.
Probably because Mac is terrible with GoToMeeting. Their Mac software isn't that great. So, is my screen caught up too?
Pretty much, I think.
All right, just assume it is.
Yeah.
Split.
Can you explain the crop again as you're doing the next level, please?
These pieces hanging off the back, we don't want them. We just want everything from this forward. So by cropping, we're cropping off everything behind it. We're keeping everything inside the rectangle. So that removes it. So that's what cropping is doing. It's just removing the overhang. I don't know how else to explain it. If anyone can explain it any better. But, you know, because we're pasting the same triangle over and over, but we don't need all this overhang because it's cutting into our other shapes. So we're just going to crop it and just get rid of it now. Boolean join, difference, split. Oh. Again, it's all, repetitive, and crop. Now you see here, you have this triangle cutting into the rest of the card. We don't want the back of this to be cutting in, so we're getting rid of it. Best way to do that is to use your crop. And it gets rid of those overhangs. So if I go again and paste, you can see that this triangle, let me show you, looks like this. Okay? But we only need the triangle to go to here. We don't want it to go touch the back. So that's why I'm cropping. Oops, I got a there. And again, there's 100 ways to do anything in life, and I'm sure a few of you are going, why are you taking this many steps? If you figure out a better way to do it, awesome. But this is the way I figured to do it. There's probably quicker ways. That's what experimenting gets you. Again, and nothing. You can see these triangles are still there. Some of them have disappeared, a couple, a few of them have disappeared, but by the time you get to the top, you're going to have a lot of triangles that you're going to have to go back and erase. And the reason I use erase and not crop is because these are triangles. You want to be able to get to this point without erasing what's below it. So you just want to erase the triangle, and it's hard to crop a triangle because a crop is a rectangle. So I use the eraser. Paste. Boolean join, difference, split, delete, paste, weld, crop. A lot of steps. But you can see now we're getting to, it's looking pretty good, and it's exact, that each one of these triangles is the exact same size. They're placed exactly on top of one another. They look you can't get any more perfect. So if somebody wants to demonstrate a better way to do this, because I'm sure there is one. These are cards I do. I find them in books, and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. And if I figure out a way to do it, I don't try to. What's the word? I don't try to find a different way or a quicker way, or I just stick with what I figured out. And basically, when I'm done with a card, that's usually it. I don't ever do it again. All right, so where am I? Weld, crop, up, paste, Boolean join, difference. Only one more to go. Weld, crop. Oop, not a good crop. We want to make sure we're on the outsides of them. And you won't have to crop this last one, obviously, because when you paste, there's nothing hanging off the back, so we don't have to crop this. So all we have to do here is the Boolean join to get rid of this piece here. Difference, split, leave these to delete, paste, and then weld. So there, we're done, but you could cut this out now and it would be fine. Honestly, it would. The only problem is it's doing extra cutting in this middle, and it doesn't look good if you do a print preview or want to send it to a buddy. You see, oh, all these black lines, they're just going to fall out. They're just triangles that are just falling out. But we can get rid of all these lines to make it look much cleaner, again, by erasing. So we go to this triangle, take our eraser, and erase that. Then we go to this triangle and do the same thing. All the way till you get to the back of the card. And then you leave that back triangle alone. Erase. I like erasing, it's fun for me. I don't know why. It reminds me of drawing. Drawing with a crayon. And you can make your eraser a little bigger as you get to the bigger shapes. You know, move it up to 3 millimeters or something. So you can take up more surface area on your. So I'm going to get rid of this guy. Again, don't go over, don't touch anything else, because if you start touching, you know, if you go too far, you start taking out from over on this side, and we don't want that. And we want to make sure our eraser stays real close to the lines. You have an 1/8 inch buffer, so you shouldn't have to struggle too much with that. And erase here. And that's it. We're done. This is the end of the card.
Andy, does break apart not work?
What do you mean?
Well, you know how you're erasing them. Can you not just break them apart and throw the triangle away?
No. And the reason you can't is because this is one solid piece here. See? Remember, it was just a big rectangle? So even though it's back here, if we go into here and say do not clip siblings, you can see that this is just one big piece. So you can't break this apart.
Yep.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yep, I
You
understand
can't select this and say like split or break because it's not broken apart. It's a rectangle.
Yep.
You can't break rectangles up. So that's why I'm erasing. But yeah, good question though. I had a feature in this program called Meld.
Andy, that's an optical illusion.
What? What's an optical illusion?
When you fold this, does the V in the center come up, or is it folded down?
It will go. It'll push down. It'll actually stay level. These V's will stay level and then go flat to the bottom. So we can look at how this actually folds. So you can see these are folding downward like that. So when it's folded up, you'll see you'll get this the part that's sticking up to come out. When I open it, and you see how that works? Because they're tied to the top plane, they're going to stay level with the bottom plane. See the green matches? They're going to stay, you know, level to the green. It's
Thanks.
actually kind of neat how that ends up working. Yeah. And what's nice is this card will lay really flat. There's not a lot of overlapping pieces because they're all cut out of one another. So it's not like you did something where there's you're doing stairs where they're overlapping like 7 times, and when you close it, it's an inch thick. This card will actually be extremely thin once it's folded, because these triangles all fit inside of one another. So again, you want to keep these at least an 1/8 inch. The card to be an 1/8 inch, because this is really a pain to fold if you get any smaller, these little ledges. Plus, they wouldn't open and close nicely either. When you get out to these pieces out here, there's nothing really supporting them that well. So, I suppose they're tied to the bottom of the back. So maybe you could go smaller than an 1/8 inch, but it would be a pain to fold. I suggested at least an 1/8 inch for beginners, at least. So anyways, you can do any size you want. You can start with any size rectangle in the back. The sky's the limit. You don't have to pick an 1/8 inch. You could do, maybe a 1/4 of an inch or something if you don't have much time. And then, yeah, that's it. That's the magic with that card.
Thank you, Andy. Leslie
So is there any
says
other
that was
questions?
so much easier than when she tried it.
Yeah, is she the one that sent me? I think she sent me a card where she tried to do it.
Yes, and Cindy said,
okay.
can we see the print preview?
Yeah, print preview. So now you can see once we erase, we have this nice open triangle in the back, which is what we want. And so when this, if you were to print this out and cut it by hand or cut it on your cutter, you'll get something very nice and clean. And this triangle will hang down in the back just as you see it here, which looks really nice because it fills, it's not just a big black hole sticking out the back. It actually looks pretty slick. So, yeah. And then, obviously,
Veronica says, I have a problem with the score lines breaking. Can I make them larger or more apart?
I don't know what that means.
After they're cut and you're pulling it off of your mat, it's tearing because those score lines are so close together.
What I do, and because I have that problem too, you can, if you go into your rendering options, it's in File, Rendering Options, change all of them to short dashed. If you want to use dash lines, change your, or if you're cutting from Make the Cut, go and change it, to shorter dashes, longer cuts, or shorter dashes, longer gaps. The other trick, which is what I like doing, and I told in the forum before the baby came and I disappeared, was I go in and do solid for everything. Solid cut lines, solid mountain lines, solid hinge lines, and solid valley lines. And then I insert a space of a half millimeter, or maybe even a millimeter. And what that's going to do is I get solid lines now that cut, but I have to cut it twice. I cut it once for the cut lines and then go back and do the fold lines. But what we end up with here is I cut the cut lines. Sorry, I'm sick. My head's kind of spinning, so I'm kind of stumbling over myself. I cut with just the cut lines, and then I come back and do the fold lines, but I turn my pressure all the way down to 5 on my zig. And I leave a gap on each end of about 1 millimeter. So maybe I'll leave it at 5 or 10 or something. And what that does, my pressure, with my force at 5 or 10, it'll just scratch the paper, and it won't go from this point to this point. It'll just do the middle. So you'll get it to cut across the entire line, but you'll also have support because it's not going all the way through the paper, and it's not going to each end. So instead of perforating, try turning the force down and cutting it twice, and doing solid lines. That way you get the idea of the fold line, but it's not punching it all the way through the paper, creating a perforation where it easily comes apart. Because obviously the best way to get it to fold is to do perforations, because perforations are extremely easy to fold. Doing it this way, it's a lot harder to fold, but you have less of a chance of it coming apart at the fold line. So, just a tip. There was another thing I wanted to say, but that's pretty much the gist of it. So.
And just as a comment,
Anyways,
last week's webinar, I showed how to do it in Make the Cut to change them to a different dash pattern. So if you do want to stick with dashes and you want to change it, your two options in Popup Card Studio are the long or short dashes. But if you take it into Make the Cut, you can actually very easily change those to whatever dash pattern you'd like.
I want to show something too before for the print and cut people. Now that I have your attention, here's a camera I did for Paper Cuts, I think his name is, and he said, oh, if you could do a print and cut on this camera, it would be cool. So if anybody's tried to do print and cuts, I know, like, for instance, Susan has and whatnot. I never tried it in version 1.0, and after I released PCS, I tried to do a print and cut, and I'm like, wow, this is a pain in the butt. Why didn't anybody say anything? So I just figured, you know, people were just used to it. In this version, if we say export just to an SVG file, for instance, and open it in MTC, let me do this. Hang on 1 second. I'll get there. Okay. So now let's say I wanted to color the face of this camera black, the top gray, this piece here a different color, this piece a different color, and all so on and so forth. To do that, you have to go through and separate all these pieces, because right now it's just cut lines. So trying to do a print and cut and separating all these pieces out is a big pain in the butt. So I just wanted to give people a preview so they're not going, well, for print and cut, PCS is terrible. Well, actually, no. But in the current form, yeah, maybe you're right. But, all right. Now, in the new version, there'll be an export project shapes. There's project rendering to machine SVG and PDF, but project shapes is SVG. Once we export it and drag it into now you see, you'll still want both pieces, but what you end up with is now you have the shapes. So now you can pull these shapes out and color them differently. So this will give you print and cut people who want to do, you know, so if you want the, since they're on two separate layers, let me just put these on top of one another. Let's see. So with our shapes, I can go in and easily color, you know, the pieces I want colored. So let's say I want this piece to be brown, this piece to be, or the bottom, obviously the bottom piece doesn't matter. This piece to be yellow. So you can easily go in and change all the colors, is basically what I'm trying to tell you. And then what you can do is do your print, and then you'll get it all printed out in color. And then do your print and cut on your Zing or whatever, and then you get a nice simple print and cut in a 100th of the time. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there for the people who are frustrated with print and cuts. I haven't seen a lot of them, and I think the reason is because it's a pain in the butt.
Now I'll be frustrated waiting for it.
Yeah, I know. That's why I wanted to show you.
You teased us, Andy.
Just to be
Do
clear,
you agree that's so much easier because right now it's such a pain?
it is. It'll be great.
It'll be.
And
yeah,
it'll
be ready in 2 days. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It'll be... Just to be clear, what now?
No, I was just going to say, just to be clear, he's not
say?
giving you a date, but then you went ahead and said 2 days. And to be clear, it's also in the future. It's it's in the new version,
okay,
not in the current version.
I thought that's what you were. Yeah, not in the current version. So.
Yeah, as Darlene says,
and then I'm
it'll
sure
be
Susan
soon.
will do some awesome tutorials on how to use the feature. Sorry, my audio's really late.
Yeah, I can throw away a lot of the other tutorials and just do them with that and make it a whole lot simpler to watch.
Yeah, because the old way was a big pain because you had to go through and like.
I was cutting and pasting from Make the Cut. Not from Make the Cut.
From PCS.
Popup Card Studio. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this
one's
was
for the
much
background.
easier. I feel bad for you that you don't have that in the current version. That's too bad. I'll get there. I have to fix some bugs. There was a problem with notes dialogue, and the notes window crashing people and all kinds of stuff. I have to fix that. So some people, they can't open up any projects because the projects have notes, and when they try to open a project with notes, it crashes and all this kind of stuff. So I got to make sure I fix these crashes. So. But I wanted to put that in there and tease a little bit. So in the meantime,
That's always good.
So anyways, you can take over because I'm sure my internet's going to die because, or my GoToMeeting is going to die because Mac's GoToMeeting is terrible. So.
Okay.
Can you still hear me?
Yes. No, you're good.
Frozen?
Yeah, I switched over so people
okay.
see my screen here now. So.
Cindy wants to know if we're going to have to buy the new update or
No, this will be free.
Oh, good. Free.
Yeah. It's either going to be free or $700. I haven't decided yet. No, it'll be free. Version 1.0, there's always going to be little bugs and crashes and stuff that needs to be updated. So it'll be a minor. It'll probably just be a 1.02. So I just added in some little minor stuff among the crash fixes. So. It's just I haven't really been able to work on it because I have this little kid here who likes to scream and eat and poop all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not my wife. It's a baby.
Okay, so are there other questions? We've pretty much gone through the questions within the thread here. So that's completed.
I have to say, Brian, I now get your way of where it
the intersection?
The different shapes. Yeah, finally.
Okay. Yeah, if we repeat it enough, and it sort of helps that Andy says he's using that method now too. So add some legitimacy.
Where are the pictures? To get a plastic 3D baby.
Yeah. You can get those scanners now that it basically looks like a wand that you hold up, and you can move it around an object, and it'll record it in 3D, so that you can import the object into a program and then print it out in 3D.
They did a setup with that with the Raspberry Pis and the camera with the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, yep. They put it on like a record player, and then they have
actually no, they did multiple and synced them up with the network option there, and it's pretty. I'll have to find it. It was a month or so ago that they showed it, but it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, what the one I saw, they took a record player and modified it so it only spun at 1 RPM a minute,
Yeah.
45 or whatever. I don't know what. And then they put like a garden gnome on it, and they have ultrasound, not ultrasound, but echo measuring, where they bounce echoes off of it or something, and they use all kinds of magic. And while it's spinning around, it keeps taking pictures over and over and over of this object. And then you get this 3D model that you can import into and then print on a 3D printer. So you can duplicate really anything you find in your house. At least the shape of it.
Brian?
It'd be cool if you could put a TV on there and duplicate the TV and it just worked, but you just get the shell of the TV.
Yeah. Yes, Susan. Faith.
Explain to people that Raspberry Pis aren't Raspberry Pis that you eat.
Sorry. Yeah. Yes, Raspberry Pi is a rather interesting project done by the Raspberry Pi Foundation.
And its pi is spelled like P-I, the mathematical, not
yeah.
P-I-E.
Yeah. So it's a small computer. It's about the little bit larger than a credit card size. 2 models. Just look up Raspberry Pi. Raspberry spelled as raspberry, the fruit, and pi is the mathematical symbol, Pi, and you'll see quite a bunch of projects people have done. The website is raspberrypi.org is the main one, but it's fun for geeky people, among other things. It's been used in a lot of projects. So.
Yeah, that's how I knew it wasn't an eating pie.
Yeah. Yeah. Although my wife does make a good Raspberry Pi.
We do have another MTC question.
Yeah, before we get to that question, let me just do, Faith, you had your hand up. Did you have a question? I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead, Faith. Can you hear me? Oops. It's not letting me unmute you. So, oh, there we go. Try it now. Can you hear me, Faith?
Yes, I can hear you, but my iPad fell, so that's why my hand went up. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'll mute you and then lower your hand. Okay, go ahead. Julie, you said there was another question?
We have the MTC question about doing a print and cut to silhouette.
Okay.
I think I have everything oriented the way it should be, but the cut is way off. I do have a second shadow that I'm trying to cut instead of the background shadow.
Okay, so I guess my first
It's not
question to you is, not to you, Julie, but the person asking the question is, the shadow that the second shadow, is it bigger or smaller? And if it is smaller, then that's probably the issue. So we talked about this, was it last week's webinar? Maybe 2 weeks ago, on how to...
Last week.
Last week, yeah. So we did talked about how you, in this case, the talk was specifically about having an image that you could do a bleed on it. So your image was larger than your cut area. Print it out, but still have it cut where you want it to cut. So I would recommend watching the video from last week, which is already posted. And then if you still have a question on that, it'd be really good to have the specific, either pictures of what's happening or whatever. But I'm guessing that you're printing out one set of information and cutting another set, and they're not exactly the same size. Yeah, I mean that's fine, and there's lots of different ways of doing it, but we did go over that last week. At least it's fresh in my mind, and I think I covered it fairly well. I haven't heard back from the people we were doing it for. They were going to try it and make sure that it worked for them, but that's fine. The main problem is when you are in Make the Cut. Just real quick for other people, when you're doing a print and cut, I wonder if I still even have that. This was what we were doing it on. But so let's just say in this case I have, I won't bring the image in, but I have the gray and the white. Let's make the white something other than white. And I want to print everything, but I want to cut along in essence, what's duplicated or what's represented by that red. But I'm going to make the bleed area red, so it's all there. So we want to print all of this, but only cut here. Well, normally people will, obviously you want to print everything, which is fine. Actually, let me just show you this real quick. But go to last week's webinar because we did talk about this. I'm going to turn on print registration marks. But you can see where my, in fact, we'll just leave it there. You can see where the registration marks are when I have both layers open. And when I print it out, it's going to print just one big red blob, right? And you can see where the registration marks are. If then when I cut it, I don't want to cut the outer one. You see how the registration marks drop down? And even though you're not printing these, this is logically where Make the Cut thinks the registration marks should be based on what you're telling it to cut. So it's going to cut smaller than what you actually want to cut, because it's when you printed it, the registration marks were as if you had the larger object showing as well. So there was ways to get around that, and that's what we talked about last week. The other, you could mess up also vice versa, that if when I printed it out, when I printed it out, I only showed, this part, but then when I cut, I want a larger shadow, so I want a white border around this. Again, it'd work in the opposite. It would cut larger because I'm sorry. It'll mess up because where Make the Cut believes these registration marks are logically when you send it to the printer. So the key is where the registration marks are when you send it to the printer should be exactly where the registration marks are when you send it to the cutter. Otherwise, you'll get a difference, and it won't match up with what you're thinking. So that's the basics. Last week we described how to get around that, so you can go ahead and watch that.
She says she wants to cut in between.
In between what? It does. I'm just showing
the outside shadow and the design line, cut line.
That doesn't make. So let me just state that it doesn't matter what the design line looks like. Sorry, right? I have two examples here where I have a cut line and a not a cut line. Ignore everything else here for a minute. So even if I put another line in between here, it would still be the same thing. You're printing something larger that's larger than what you send to the printer, or vice versa. So sorry, you're printing something with registration marks that when you send it to the cutter, it's smaller than was printed or larger than what it was printed. Either way, it's going to mess up. So whether you're cutting inset of shadows or outset shadows, whether it's a quarter of an inch away, an eighth of an inch away, an inch away, the whole thing is your registration marks are not staying in the same place when you print it versus what you send to the cutter. So in between is in between, and it doesn't matter with the problem. Okay. Other questions?
Not yet.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. We'll keep on talking afterwards, but we're at about just about 2 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.